That day, Seiya held a meeting with several employees, announcing that they were running low on funds. Asher remarked that this meant the 30-yen strategy was a complete failure. Seiya mentioned he couldn't afford to pay salaries that month. Macaron and Tirami were shocked to hear this. Seiya reiterated that he couldn't pay wages under these circumstances and needed ideas to generate money quickly. Macaron suggested hosting horse races for everyone, but Seiya rejected the idea, not wanting to associate the amusement park with gambling. Tirami proposed opening a nightlife entertainment venue, but unfortunately, that would be illegal. Malful offered his idea of a boxing bar, which Seiya anticipated, knowing Malful's penchant for fighting. Isuzu suggested extra trading, but Seiya didn't even understand the diagram she presented. Macaron mentioned they had Dornell's Cave, located in the second park area. Malful explained that they once had a performer named Dornell, the Flower Fairy. One night, Dornell got drunk and went on a courage test with his friends, discovering a treasure in that cave. That day, Seiya and the others visited the southern area, and Seiya was surprised by its size. Isuzu explained that the plan was to build a second park, an amusement sports park starting with a stadium. However, after that, an economic bubble burst, wiping out all those plans, leaving the southern area neglected. They then visited Dornell's cave. According to the story, Dornell never returned from that cave. Seiya asked about Dornell's friends who went with him. According to the tale, those friends were found in a near-death state, and one of them mentioned that inside the cave was a giant underground labyrinth. The treasure's existence was still uncertain. Tirami hoped to find it, but Seiya wasn't too optimistic. After entering, they only encountered dead ends. Tirami was disappointed, having high hopes for the treasure. Seiya felt they were wasting time and suggested they head back. Suddenly, Tirami found a lever. She immediately pulled it, and indeed, the cave door opened, revealing a path inside. Without hesitation, Malful and Macaron entered the cave. Tirami was excited to explore its contents. Isuzu urged Seiya to enter the cave. He asked her to be patient. Once everyone was inside, the cave door suddenly closed on its own. Malful, Macaron, and Tirami panicked, realizing it was a trap. Seiya regretted not trusting his earlier doubts about the cave. Isuzu said there was no other way but to proceed further. Meanwhile, the fairies came to Seiya's office to discuss a new performance, but unfortunately, they didn't find him there. The fairies wondered why Seiya and Isuzu were absent from the office. Muse tried sending a text message to Isuzu's phone. Isuzu received a message from Muse asking about her whereabouts and realized there was still a signal in the cave. Isuzu replied that she was in a mysterious hole. Meanwhile, Seiya and the others arrived at a place when suddenly, a voice announced itself as the gatekeeper. They were puzzled to see a talking statue, which was certainly beyond human comprehension. Suddenly, a chest emerged from the ground. The statue instructed them to choose a chest, promising they would be granted weapons to slay monsters. When the chest opened and Macaron eagerly approached, convinced there would be legendary weapons inside. Seiya also took one of the weapons from the chest. Seiya received a shovel, Malful got a stun gun, Macaron obtained a metal bat, Tirami was given a Molotov cocktail, and Isuzu received a chain. Seiya didn't understand the purpose of these weapons. They looked like an armed gang. The statue instructed them to proceed and referred to them as brave adventurers. They entered a corridor, and Macaron was unsure of their destination. Suddenly, Tirami stepped on something which turned out to be a secret button that activated a trap, nearly decapitating them. Tirami and Macaron were terrified and wanted to leave immediately. Seiya didn't even know how to exit the place. Malful advised them to stay alert. He took charge, instructing Isuzu to be ready with her musket, placing himself and Tirami at the front, assigning Macaron to the rear to report any traps he noticed, while Isuzu was tasked with protecting Seiya. Everyone assumed their positions. Just as they were about to take their first step, Malful accidentally stepped on a hidden button, causing a massive boulder to roll towards them from behind. They ran for their lives. At that moment, Muse sent a message to Isuzu asking if she was with Seiya. Isuzu replied, stating that she was nearly dying. Meanwhile, in their panic, they inadvertently triggered more hidden buttons, setting off a series of traps including spear attacks, slicing blades, and large spiked iron balls. As one of these spiked balls was about to hit Seiya, Isuzu pushed him out of the way but was herself thrown into an underground trap. Shortly after, Macaron also fell into the pit. Seiya could only shout, calling out for Isuzu. Malful quickly grabbed Seiya and urged him to keep moving. Seiya was deeply saddened by Isuzu's loss, but Malful reminded him that it wasn't the time to mourn. They needed to find a way out of the labyrinth. Tirami urged his friends to be quiet as he thought he heard something approaching. It turned out to be a group of pig soldiers surrounding them. Malful and Tirami were eager to fight them all. Seiya couldn't believe they were going to take on all the pig soldiers. Malful told Seiya to sit back and suck his thumb. As the pig soldiers approached, Muffle immediately attacked them. Tirami threw his Molotov cocktail at them, and Seiya managed to hit one with his shovel. Muffle and Tirami were ferocious in their battle against the pigs. Meanwhile, Isuzu regained consciousness and opened her eyes. They found themselves in a prison cell. Macaron wanted to get out immediately and pondered how to open the door. Just as he was about to ask Isuzu how to open it, she fired her bullet, and they were free from the cell. However, the place seemed eerily quiet. Suddenly, they heard a sound and approached its source, discovering a room filled with anime posters, games, comics, and more inhabited by Dornell. Macaron recognized him. Meanwhile, Seiya never expected to swing a shovel with that much force. Tirami had run out of Molotov cocktails and wished there was some gunpowder lying around so he could make more bombs himself. Suddenly, they were startled by the pig soldiers returning, forcing them to run back inside. At that moment, Dornell started telling his story. In short, since no one ever came to pick him up, he spent his time building plastic models, watching anime, and playing games using the internet connection he had installed. For the past 10 years, Dornell had been living in that place because it was comfortable. Suddenly, he called his assistant to bring snacks and some oolong tea to treat Macaron and Isuzu. Macaron mentioned that the park had listed Dornell as a missing person and even assumed he was dead. Macaron was surprised that Dornell never informed management that he was still alive. Dornell explained that at first he treated it like a long vacation, but over time, it became harder to reach out to the park. On top of that, he had gotten addicted to playing MOs, massively multiplayer online games, so much so that he played for 20 hours a day. Macaron called Dornell a complete maniac. Isuzu, on the other hand, questioned why Dornell didn't just disappear entirely if he was living off distractions. Dornell was also infamous for pretending to be a girl while playing MOs. Macaron could hardly believe it. Suddenly, Dornell's assistant arrived with the drinks and snacks he had ordered earlier. The assistant referred to Isuzu and Macaron as the guests. Meanwhile, Seiya, Muffle, and Tirami had successfully trapped the pig soldiers in a room and locked it using Seiya's shovel. The three of them were utterly exhausted. Tirami commented that the place was completely insane. Then right in front of them, a massive dragon appeared. Muffle was already fed up with everything, while Tirami was terrified at the sight of such a huge creature. The dragon's name was Rubrum. He declared that he had surpassed human knowledge. Rubrum was irritated and demanded to know why they had woken him from his deep slumber. Tirami panicked, but Muffle told him to stay calm and observe what Rubrum actually wanted. Muffle tried to sound brave, but in reality he ended up hiding behind Seiya. Seiya attempted to speak with Rubrum, apologizing for disturbing him and explaining that he and his two friends were lost and separated from the others. Rubrum, full of pride, repeated that he had surpassed human knowledge. He didn't believe Seiya and accused them of coming to steal his treasure. Seiya denied the accusation, explaining that he and his friends were only there to investigate the facility. Rubrum claimed that he had arrived in this world thousands of years ago and had long surpassed human knowledge, so he would be fooled by Seiya and his friends so easily. Tirami, growing irritated, pointed out that Rubrum kept repeating the same phrase about surpassing human knowledge. Rubrum took offense, believing that Tirami was mocking him. Furious, he declared that they would pay for their arrogance with their lives. Suddenly, the pig soldiers returned and surrounded Seiya and his group. Tirami was terrified. Muffle declared that they had to fight to the last drop of blood. Seiya agreed, realizing they only had two choices: fight or die. Seiya then shouted at Rubrum, who kept boasting about surpassing human knowledge. He challenged the dragon's intelligence, stating that he didn't believe Rubrum was as smart as he claimed. Seiya asserted that he was actually much smarter than Rubrum thought. Intrigued, Rubrum demanded Seiya to prove it. Seiya agreed to answer any question Rubrum asked, but if he got it right, Rubrum had to let them go. Rubrum accepted the challenge, but if Seiya answered incorrectly, they would have to face the consequences. Rubrum then asked a question from an ancient legend. In the past, there was a man who declared he would become the god of war. Who was he? Seiya immediately used his ability to read Rubrum's mind. He instantly figured out the answer and quickly responded, "The holy grail of the wise sage, Tadima on Shisho." Rubrum was stunned to hear Seiya's answer, especially since he hadn't even finished asking the question. Seiya then asked if his answer was correct, and Rubrum had no choice but to admit that it was. Tirami cheered, calling Seiya amazing. However, Rubrum was convinced that Seiya had cheated. The question he had asked was actually an entrance exam question for Schubert Agricultural Academy, a prestigious institution in the field of agricultural alchemy. It was impossible for Seiya to know the answer. Frustrated, Rubrum declared that he wouldn't let them leave alive. Tirami commented that Rubrum suddenly seemed very threatened. Muffle was confident that he could take Rubrum down. He immediately leaped and landed a powerful punch to Rubroom's chin. Rubroom winced in pain, but Malful wasn't satisfied yet and was about to strike again. Saya called out for Malful to stop, but Malful ignored him. Left with no other choice, Saya kicked Malful. Malful was furious at Saya, but Saya explained that he did it because he noticed that Rubroom was actually apologizing to Malful. Apparently, Rubroom had gotten too into his role. His punch had been excessive, considering he only intended to entertain his guests after not having visitors for so long. Saya was surprised to hear them being called guests. Rubroom explained that Saya and his group were the second group of visitors to enter the attraction Rubroom's Judgment by Fire. Saya and the others were shocked to hear this. Suddenly, Isuzu and Macaron arrived. Isuzu confirmed that what Rubroom said was true. Tirami was relieved to see that Isuzu and Macaron were safe. Then, Dornell appeared and greeted them. The pig troops removed their costumes, revealing that underneath, they were actually mole people, the Digging Clan. Saya asked if the attraction had been abandoned. Teramo, the leader of the Digging Clan, explained the situation in detail. However, Saya asked him to summarize it in 20 seconds since he didn't have much time. Teramo explained that their clan had always been unrivaled in machinery and construction, which made them a target for powerful figures. Backed into a corner of the theme park allowed them to settle on the land and offered them protection. But an attraction was needed to conceal the real story. The Digging Clan had been targeted by the ruling party of the Policia Empire. Isuzu added that the park had secretly provided help and that there seemed to be some suspicious financial dealings involved. Teramo continued, explaining that at first they were paid for their construction work, but later they had to survive off their savings. As a result, the treasure that was supposedly hidden in the banquet hall had already been spent. The fairy sent a message to Isuzu asking if she was okay. Isuzu replied that she was fine. After exiting the labyrinth, Saya and Isuzu met with Latifa and told her everything they had experienced that day. Suddenly, the Digging Clan arrived to greet Latifa. Rubroom landed in front of Latifa's castle. Teramo and Latifa were overjoyed to see each other again. Malful and the others arrived with important news. The Policia Empire had collapsed after a revolution. This meant that the Digging Clan was no longer being hunted. Teramo was relieved that they were finally free. He then requested that Saya employ the Digging Clan at the park. Rubroom also asked to be hired, promising to scare the guests for entertainment. Saya accepted all of them, but in return, he warned that he would make them work hard. Isuzu then asked about their financial situation. Macaron came up with an idea to solve their money problems. The next day, the Digging Clan managed to construct a building overnight. Meanwhile, Macaron and Ashe sold off Dornell's entire collection. According to Isuzu, it seemed like they could manage to get through the month thanks to Dornell's collection. However, Amai Brilliant Park's fundamental problem still remained. They needed to come up with the next step to increase their number of visitors. They only had 66 days left, with 236,942 more visitors still needed to reach their target. That day, the department heads of Amai Brilliant Park held a meeting. Saya stated that they were currently experiencing a staff shortage. Malful pointed out that first they lacked money, and now they were short on employees. Ashe commented that just the other day, Saya had hired new employees, and on top of that, the funds for paying salaries had been overlooked. Saya explained that although they had received a financial injection, it was only for certain sectors, and the rest remained out of their reach. Isuzu doubted that many people would apply, but Toriken suggested that they might actually receive a lot of beautiful applicants, possibly even ones aiming for Isuzu's position. Isuzu responded that if someone more suitable than her appeared, she would gladly hand over her position. Saya decided that starting tomorrow, they would open job applications. That night, Isuzu had a dream about 3 beautiful girls whom Saya had hired. They successfully took her position and Saya no longer needed her. Shocked, Isuzu immediately fired her musket and woke up. She quickly took a shower and reflected on the dream, recalling some things Saya had said to her in the past. As she got ready, she looked in the mirror and tried smiling. That morning during breakfast, Isuzu greeted Macaron. The menu for the day was curry. Macaron asked if she was sure about eating that dish. Isuzu replied that she suddenly felt like having it that morning. Macaron warned her to be careful since the day before, Crocky had tried eating it and ended up with a stomachache. Sitting beside Isuzu, Macaron remarked that eating curry in the morning could lead to weight gain. He knew that Isuzu often ate alone and pointed out that she wasn't particularly sociable, meaning she was the type to get caught up in complicated matters. However, every time Macaron spoke, Isuzu only responded with, "Maybe so." Feeling mischievous, Macaron suddenly called out Saya's name. The moment Isuzu turned to look, he quickly slipped a pill into her food. That morning on her way to school, a friend greeted Isuzu and asked why she looked so pale. Isuzu answered in great detail, explaining that she had a bad dream, ate terrible curry, got mocked by a colleague, and that nothing was going smoothly at work. Her friend commented that she must be going through a lot. Isuzu admitted that she was supposed to support Saya from behind the scenes but was unsure if she was meeting his expectations. Suddenly realizing she had said too much, Isuzu quickly covered her mouth and walked away. That day, Malfoy was supervising the fairies as they practiced their moves and poses. Macaron and Tirami were also watching. Macaron casually told Tirami that he had slipped a truth serum pill into Isuzu's food that morning at breakfast. Tirami asked if Macaron did that to find out his daughter's true feelings. He then asked if Macaron was trying to gain custody from his ex-wife. Macaron admitted that was exactly what he wanted, which was why he decided to test Isuzu first. Tirami commented that Isuzu was probably struggling right now since her heart was being forced to express her true feelings. Macaron originally just wanted to see if the pill worked, but Isuzu had rushed off to school before he could observe the results. Meanwhile, Tirami's perverted mind had other ideas. He was actually hoping to ask her how many times she masturbated in a week. Macaron also said that if Tirami dared to ask that question, he would probably get killed afterward. However, Isuzu overheard them and immediately pointed her musket at them. Tirami and Macaron were terrified and Isuzu quickly fired at both of them. Saya arrived and asked what was going on. Isuzu explained that they deserved it because they had given her the honesty fruit and were trying to ask inappropriate questions like how many times she had masturbated. Isuzu quickly covered her mouth and asked Saya not to think about what she had just said. Saya didn't understand what Isuzu was talking about and didn't care about it. He immediately asked her to accompany him to the administration office because there was an interview scheduled at 1 o'clock. Isuzu was surprised and Saya asked if something was wrong with her. Still under the effects of the honesty fruit, Isuzu revealed the truth, saying she was dealing with a lot of problems because she was being forced to express what was on her mind. Saya was really scared that she might accidentally reveal the strange feelings she had for him. Every time Saya asked her a question, Isuzu answered it exactly as it came to her mind, repeatedly covering her mouth to prevent herself from saying things she shouldn't say in front of Saya. In the interview room, Saya, Malfoy, and Isuzu interviewed each applicant. The first applicant was a man who had failed in the mayoral election and was applying to work in the entertainment industry so that one day he could become the prime minister. Malfoy called it impossible, but Isuzu said that the man was tough and Saya immediately accepted him because his brave attitude would help him go further. The second applicant was a high school athlete who was crying, regretting what caused him to lose in a match. Isuzu said that the tears of a high school athlete could inspire others. Saya accepted him because players should be able to control the emotions of their guests. The third applicant was a professional wrestler who had been fired from professional wrestling because of his shyness, which made it hard for him to lock his opponents. Isuzu said that people like him already had Okuro in the security department. Saya asked the man to take off his mask, but the man refused, saying he would rather die than remove it. Saya asked Okuro to come and fight the man. The man skillfully locked Okuro, and Isuzu even said his wrestling style came from instincts. Saya accepted him. The next applicants included a ninja, an astronaut, and even someone with strange dancing skills. All of them were accepted by Saya. Suddenly, a beautiful girl came in to apply for a job named Adaki Aiko. Malfoy and Saya were happy to finally interview someone normal. Isuzu was shocked to see that the woman looked exactly like someone from her dream. Aiko had previously worked in talent agencies and film production, but it turned out the films she worked on were adult videos. Saya and Malfoy were taken aback, especially since she had starred in more than 10 films. Malfoy urged Saya to ask her about her stage name, but Saya clearly couldn't ask such a thing. Saya then asked Isuzu for her opinion, and Isuzu told him not to dump this onto her since her mind was blank. Furthermore, the woman looked so much like a former applicant from her dream, and her work experience was shaking Saya to his core. Isuzu then mentioned that Saya seemed to be obsessed with older women who had big breasts, tolerant minds, and a lot of sexual experience, unlike herself. Isuzu even thought that Saya would make Aiko his secretary and fire her. She immediately covered her mouth and hit her head because she realized she had said too much to Saya. Saya was a bit concerned about her, and Isuzu asked him to ask Aiko why she was applying for the job. Saya asked Aiko why she wanted to work with him, and Aiko explained that her previous job didn't suit her. Although she enjoyed it, she wanted to meet her clients face-to-face and make them happy. Saya accepted her right away. Malfoy mentioned that he had sent Aiko's photo to Toriken so he could look into her, especially since Toriken knew a lot about the adult video industry. Saya asked Malfoy if he had found any information about Aiko. Malfoy replied that they both already knew her stage name. The next applicant arrived named Bandu Bino. Once again, Isuzu noticed her face looked similar to one of the women in her dream from the night before. Saya thought she was a cheerful girl. Saya asked what the blood on Bino's clothes was, and Bino said she had rushed to the place. Saya asked if Bino was hurt, and she said she was fine, just a minor injury. Blood from Bino even splattered onto Saya's desk, and it looked like she had been stabbed and was losing a lot of blood. Saya quickly called for an ambulance, but Bino insisted that she was fine and was willing to risk her life just to attend the interview. Saya didn't want her to put her life at risk, but Bino refused to leave until she was accepted. The blood kept flowing from her body. Finally, Saya accepted her for the job and begged her to go to the ambulance. Suddenly, Bino's older brother arrived and stopped her from working, claiming that he had tried to prevent her from coming to the interview by stabbing her. As the man tried to attack Saya, Saya kicked him, making him fall. Isuzu quickly shot him and Mafel hit him. When the man tried to strike Mafel on the head, Mafel dodged and punched him in the chin. Mafel said that the man would be temporarily paralyzed. The ambulance arrived to take Bino away. Isuzu, Saya, and Mafel talked about Bino until they didn't notice any more applicants coming in. Mafel asked why they accepted Bino, and Isuzu said that, in fact, it was a relief. Most people would say they shouldn't have rejected her, but Bino stuck to her commitment with a smile even after being stabbed. Her determination and passion were very useful for the park. Saya agreed and added that if Isuzu was so good at judging character, she should make that her life's guiding principle. Mafel also said that's why Isuzu had a big heart. Isuzu immediately pointed her musket at Mafel and Saya. When Mafel dodged, the female applicant screamed in fear. Isuzu remembered that this girl was also one of the people in her dream. Saya didn't understand why Isuzu kept talking about her dreams. The last applicant was wearing an Amity High School uniform. The girl introduced herself as Chuju Shina. Shina spoke very nervously, so Saya told her to calm down. Saya asked for Isuzu's opinion, and Isuzu said to accept her, since there weren't many female applicants and she didn't think Shina would try to seduce Saya. Once again, Isuzu let something slip because of the effects of the honesty fruit. She quickly covered her mouth and hid her head. According to Mafel, based on her demeanor, Shina would have difficulty entertaining guests, but that wasn't an issue for him. Saya thought Mafel would reject her, but after seeing the previous applicant, Mafel no longer cared. Saya ended up accepting Shina. Shina was very grateful and quickly left. The interview session for the day was over, but before leaving, Isuzu told Saya that earlier that morning, Macaron's assessment of her was similar to Saya's. Macaron had called her someone who was perplexed by complicated situations, saying that she never knew how to act when interacting with others, which was why she pulled out her musket. Isuzu said that if only she could go back, she would be able to see the future more clearly. Saya responded that judging people and interacting with them were two different things. He asked Isuzu to stop being so indecisive and called her foolish. Isuzu then asked if Saya was trying to comfort her, but it turned out he wasn't. Isuzu admitted that she had been jealous of Saya more than once, almost continuing her sentence, but she stopped herself and quickly hid her head to keep herself from speaking her mind. Saya said it was normal to feel jealous of someone's talent and told Isuzu not to overthink it. Isuzu then asked Saya to change his pride in his strengths. Saya, however, replied that he really did have many strengths. Isuzu quickly left the room. Saya couldn't stop thinking about why Isuzu had hit her head several times that day. He was confused about what was going on with her. Suddenly, Isuzu sent Saya a message about the next steps for the candidates. They would receive their acceptance letters by email and go through training before being assigned to their respective tasks and areas. Isuzu also apologized for what had happened earlier. Meanwhile, Macaron was upset because the AV tape that was supposed to feature Eiko had a different actress. It seemed that the photo Mafel had sent to Toriken was not the right one. However, Tirami was interested in watching it. Macaron and Mafel definitely didn't want to, as the actress was overweight and unattractive, but Tirami liked it and immediately started watching. Isuzu sent out emails to the candidates. Out of curiosity, she tried searching for Eviko's name online. However, when she looked it up, it turned out that the video she found was about animals nursing. So when Eiko had referred to AV, she didn't mean adult video, but animal video. The next day, training began. Mafel, Macaron, and Tirami came in front of the candidates, telling them to erase any disgusting smiles from their faces. Macaron told the candidates to stand, while Mafel declared that everyone in the room was no longer human and referred to them as the lowest creatures on Earth. Mafel and the others would train them as harshly as possible until they were worthy of entertaining the guests. They also planned to punish any candidates who were disobedient and unworthy of working at the amusement park. They instructed that every sentence the employees spoke should start and end with the word "sir." Mawful called all the candidates or mutts with no killer instinct. Suddenly, Saya kicked Mawful, saying they might lose another employee if Mawful continued to train them so roughly. The two were about to fight when Isuzu skillfully shot between them to stop the altercation. The candidates were terrified. There were only 35 days left, and the target for the number of visitors was still 172,885 people.